That's what we do here at Central. We make the big time where we're at. We don't have to be at UW or Washington State to be the best football program in the state, the best run football program, to have the highest attention to detail as football players. We can play the best football in the state of Washington by being big time at the level that we're at. And we try to do that every single day here at Central Washington.
The council is now in session.
With a personality shaped by being an athlete and a background in mainstream sports media, I found that the stories I was most interested in telling were the ones often overlooked, the ones that might not otherwise be told, the ones that show the intangible and not just the highlight reel. The Sports Council is about highlighting the great, the good, the unique, and everything in between in the Pacific Northwest sports world. I'm Jamie Council. Thanks for joining me.
You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, the Tri-Cities leader in sports.
Welcome to the Sports Council. I'm Jamie Council. It's football season, and around the state, a lot of people have eyes on the future of the Pac-12, but a school that sometimes gets overlooked, but a lot of local talent, is Central Washington, and a building programmer joined by head coach Chris Fisk. First of all, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. You have more time on your hands because you're not traveling this week.
We are. We're finally home. I appreciate you having me on.
So you guys building the program, just talk about how special last season was. I mean, it was so fun to watch that you guys were playing all the way into December, which wasn't really expected out of Central Washington.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positives that came out of last season, a lot of things that we were able to build on. I think the best part about last season was we were able to do it in a rebuild year, right? And that was supposed to be a rebuild year for us. We had a lot of young players who are back on this year's roster. And so, that'll go down as one of the better teams in Central Washington Division II history. But I always talk about this with our team is at the end of the day, we accomplished this last year as we won 2 playoff games. We didn't win our conference championship and we didn't win a national championship. So we brought home no hardware. And that's really the goal at the end of the day, is to win the conference championship and then get ourselves in position to make a playoff run. So we've got bigger things to accomplish.
So we'll get into that. But first, I know we've talked about this before, but give me a little bit of your background at Central Washington.
Yeah, so I got here in 2016. I was brought here as the offensive line coach by Ian Shoemaker, who was the previous head coach. Ian and I had known each other for a long time in the Midwest. We were both in North Dakota at the same time coaching football. And then we coached against each other in the Northern Sun Conference. I was at the University of Mary. He was at St. Cloud State. And we used to get to know each other at the North Dakota State football camps in the summertime and sit up late and draw ball plays on napkins and, talk football and all that stuff. When he got the job out here at Central Washington, we reconnected and we had Central Washington down to Southern Oregon University where I was coaching at the time. We had an offensive clinic in the winter, reconnected, and we're able to kind of just, talk and become professional advisors to one another. And I saw him at a national convention in the winter at one point, and we got talking. He asked me if I knew any O-line coaches that would maybe be interested in the Central Washington job, and I told him I would. So I moved my family up here in 2016. We had a good run in 16, had a great run in 17, had another good run in 18, and then coach took off for the Eastern Washington job. And thankfully, Dr. Gaudino and Dennis Francois decided that I would be the next head coach, and I've been here as the head coach ever since.
And I know we've talked about that, the North Dakota ties, but let's talk a little bit about the move into the GNAC. I kind of mentioned to start the show that everybody's talking about the Pac-12, but you guys are originally part of the GNAC, which the football kind of dissipated. Now you guys play in the Lonestar Conference. So talk about that transition. What was that like of having question marks of where you're going to play moving forward and then moving into the Lonestar Conference?
Yeah, I think even as I chose to make the move to Central Washington, knowing the GNAC and the fragility of Division II football on the West Coast, chose to come here anyway, knowing that, I knew Central Washington was one of those schools that wouldn't drop football, that football was important to this school, this university, this town, this region of the state. So I felt very comfortable coming up here, and that if the GNAC was to fold at some point, that the school would find other options, whether it be independent or a different conference. I don't know that I envisioned the Lone Star. I thought maybe the Rocky Mountain Conference or Northern Sun Conference, because they had been in the NCC before the North Central Conference. I thought those would be more fits, but the Lone Star came calling. The Lone Star had needs for teams. And, moving into the Lone Star, I always equate it to this as the GNAC, we were like the Mountain West. We were a group of 5 conference. We were playing each other's twice. And then you move into the Lone Stars, like moving into a Power 5 conference. And every week you got to be ready. You got to be on your toes. You got to be ready to rock and roll, because these are good teams. They are well funded. They have maximum scholarships. They've got great coaches. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the coaches in this conference. We have very good football coaches, along with very good football players. And so it's a blast. I think our kids, especially the ones that did play in the GNAC, playing in this conference is such a blessing.
And with that being said, you do get a lot of road time. You guys were just at West Texas A&M 3, which, like you said, with your delays was a little bit more than that. You guys travel so well. So talk about that part of the game, something that you've really developed, that it's hard to travel. It's hard to do all that stuff, but you guys make it look easy.
Well, I think it's one of those things that, nobody knew it was hard until somebody told us. And so it's just kind of been life at Central. If you're going to play football here, you're going to have to travel, around the country to get it done. And so our kids don't know any different. That's just kind of life here at Central. I talk to coaches across the country that are in bus leagues and those things, and they say, well, how many times do you fly? I said, well, we're flying, 6 times this year. And their jaw drops to the floor. And to me, it's just kind of what we do to play. And so our guys do a great job with it. Over the last 3 years here at Central, where we went through 2 years of construction and remodeling, we didn't have a locker room for 2 years. We didn't have meeting rooms. We were all over campus. And you go through those things, and that builds a toughness level in your kids. And I think our kids have that. I told them in the team meeting on Monday, I don't know if you guys are complaining behind my back, but I don't ever hear complaining, and it's admirable. It's one of the things that makes coaching this team a joy, is they don't really complain. They don't whine about circumstances. They look at the circumstances, they say, go Cats, and they get the job done. And so it's a great group to coach that way.
And you also reach into other coaches. You were talking about Coach Golickson that has NFL strength training experience, talking about how you see at the highest levels, they kind of take this. So talk about the friendships, the relationships that you have around, that you bring into, a Division II program, but you're bringing things in at the highest level.
Yeah, fortunately we have resources that span from the NFL to FBS, FCS. We have people that we can bounce ideas off of. We can kind of look around the country and go, these guys are going through something similar. Can we call them and ask them what they did? And while we certainly listen to everything, maybe we don't take everything, but we're very fortunate. Coach Golickson was an NFL strength coach for 30-some years. I believe he was the first ever strength coach in the Big Sky Conference at Montana State. They were the first team to add a strength coach back in the 80s. And so he comes with this wealth of knowledge over his time in football. And so we've been very fortunate to have him around our program for the last couple of years. And he really helped us kind of shape and mold. I think after our first year in the Lone Star, we looked at it and said, man, we got to do something different. we got to be more intentional about how we travel and the things we do to travel. And he's been a great asset for us to make us better in those areas, to give our kids a better opportunity on game day to be successful.
So right now you guys are sitting 2-1, opened up the season with a loss at San Diego. And we just mentioned the rain delay, but that one was a 45-3 win in the Lonestar Conference opener at West Texas A&M. And next up you play Western New Mexico. What are the goals for this season as you're starting to get rolling? You're picked to finish on top of the Lonestar Conference by a lot. I believe it was 20 first place votes. I have it up here. Angelo State has 6. Permian Basin has 4. So you guys are by far the favorites. But what are your goals for the Wildcats this year?
Yeah, I think, when you look at the preseason voting and all that stuff, I think that's great for fans and media. It means nothing to any of the teams on those lists. And for UTPB to have 4 votes, just ridiculous when they ran away with the Lonestar Conference a year ago. They probably should have been voted first. But, it's an honor to think that people think that of your program, especially with schools from the Lone Star State, that they kind of look at a school from Washington and they think highly of our program, and the way we do things here is an honor for our kids and our coaches. Our goals for this team is, listen, we have a goal to go out. It's Wednesday. It's the 25th of September, and we're going to go put together a great practice today to implement our game plan for the weekend. And I think when you look at the body of a season and you look at what a journey that is to go through a season, anytime you have any type of vision that's deeper than that, of what we have in front of us today and what we need to accomplish this week and in this week's opponent, then you're doing yourself and your kids a disservice, because it'll only be a matter of time before you lose if you're too farsighted.
So a lot of pieces on this team. We're going to cover some of those pieces, but first we're going to take a break here from some of our sponsors. Again, we're catching up with head coach of Central Washington football, Chris Fisk. You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, your Tri-Cities leader in sports.
It's harvest time at Krispy Kreme. Get into the season with our Golden Harvest collection, featuring 4 delightful seasonal donuts, available now through October 6th. Swing by to discover even more tasty treats waiting for you. And don't forget, 2 dozen original glazed donuts are just $24.99 every day. Plus, fundraising is in full swing, so book yours today. That's Krispy Kreme. Come in with a sweet tooth, leave with a smile. Proudly offering 10% off daily for military and EMS personnel. Visit us at 2805 Dupertale Street in Richland.
Inconveniences can happen at, inconvenient times. JRT Mechanical has plumbers and HVAC technicians available 24/7 if an emergency does arise. Or if you feel like your house isn't cooling like it used to, or if you're tired of a hose leaking from last winter's freeze, JRT is an honest, reliable company that's been in the Pacific Northwest for more than 3 decades. Give JRT Mechanical a call at 509-314-4314 or visit jrtmechanical.com.
If you've got a winery, brewery, or dairy, why buy industrial parts and supplies from across the country? Central Industrial Sales is your local source for supplies and equipment for the dairy, food processing, winery, and brewing industries. We specialize in custom fabrication, industrial cleaning equipment, sanitary fittings, valves, pumps, chemicals, and many other supplies. Everything's available through our website, by phone, or by dropping by our office. Call 509-375-4032 or find us at centralindustrialsales.com.
You're listening to Jamie Council on the Sports Council.
We're back on the Sports Council here on 1340 ESPN, catching up with head coach Chris Fisk from Central Washington. And Chris, we talked about your move into the Lone Star. You guys are picked to finish on top, rather. But what are you seeing from this team? Of course, you have to put in the work that you said that stuff is all for media, and that's why it's a talking point for me, of course. It's kind of how that works. But what are you seeing from the team so far this year?
It's they've been a joy to be around and coach every single day. It's a group, and I think sometimes in coaching, when we coach a team like this, we take it for granted that this is how it always is. It's not. Every team, every year, every group has a different personality. There's different influences and leadership every single year. We've been very fortunate that the leaders of this year's team were also a big part of the leadership of last year's team. So we've been able to be very consistent as it comes to how we approach things on a day-to-day basis. You kind of talked about the help that we've had from outside sources. We also not hired because he volunteered, but Coach Ditter, the former SELA head football coach, who's a Central Washington Hall of Famer here, took over our leadership academy this offseason. And so he's been working with our kids on leadership. We designated a handful of players on our team that spent the winter, spring, summer taking leadership classes from Coach Ditter. And you can really start to see that pay off as well, that some of those lessons that have been taught over the year are really soaking in with those guys. And it's just a great group to be around. It sounds funny in football, but, you're trying to always kind of decrease drama in the locker room and other areas. And it's been a very little drama team that way. They come to work every day. They bring their lunch pail and they work hard.
Talking about some of those pieces, Kennedy McGill stepped in late last season where you guys had that quarterback, the dueling quarterbacks, and a player that could have been playing Division I on the defensive side of the ball, but instead decided that he wanted to play quarterback and really a dual threat. What does he bring? What have you seen from him as he's getting settled in as QB1?
He's got, when you kind of make a list of what you want quarterback to be, and you kind of have the Bradys and the Mannings and Mahomes, and, when you think of the greats that have played the position, you just start checking every box. He's got everything that you're looking for in a quarterback. He's got the it factor. He's got the personality. He's got the charisma. He's got the dedication. He doesn't do anything wrong off the field. He doesn't put anything bad in his body. He takes recovery, nutrition seriously. He's a 4.0 student. He's an unbelievable brother and son to his family. And so you just kind of look at the kid and you go, man, he's a kid that, you hope that your children turn out like him. And so we're blessed to have him here. But I saw that in recruiting when we got to know him and his family, and where a lot of people weren't going to give him the opportunity to play quarterback. I looked at it and said, he's got all of the attributes that we're looking for. We're going to let him play quarterback, and we think he'll be a good one. And hopefully, as we go through this, he continues to prove us right.
And what does his progression look like, or what do you want to see more from him? Of course, he can run, and the passing game has really started to come on for you guys. But you saw a little bit of maybe the growing pain or starting a new season. So how has he progressed, and how do you want to see him continue to progress as you guys are still early on in this season?
Yeah, I think, he is continuing to improve his football IQ weekly. We were in meetings the other day and we were talking about a concept, and he asked if he could check us into a certain play, which was an incredibly intelligent decision that the coaches hadn't thought of. And me and the O coordinator kind of looked at each other like, oh yeah, here he goes. Now he's starting to really see the game as a coach would see the game. And he's got the ability to put us in great situations. And I think the more he's able to do that, the greater this offense will become, because he will be able to check plays at the line of scrimmage and do some of the things that you see on Sundays instead of Saturdays, with putting his teammates in the best position to be successful.
And another big part of the offense, Tyler Flanagan, a downhill runner, already has 5 touchdowns on the year. He's such an anchor for you guys to get the run game going. How's he looking this year?
He's doing a great job. He's another one of those kids that just practices hard. He comes to work every single day. He's a pleasure to be around every single day. You take that list of great running backs, you start checking the box. he's got every box checked as well. And we're very fortunate. We coach great kids like that. I could name, a ton on offense, a ton on defense and special teams. And that's obviously intentional in recruiting, but he's having a great start to the season here, and we expect big things out of him. But, he is a guy that, when you look at the other guys around him, Cam Daniels, Justice Taylor, we've got a great young one in Bo Phillips and Kamari Washington that hopefully we'll be able to see here in the near future out of those guys. The more that we can split that load and not have 40 carries on Tyler per game, the longer that he'll be able to play through the season. And so it's important that we look at, his workload, his rep count, and we keep him fresh.
So looking to develop more depth in the run game too. It's a long season. One area that you don't have any lack of depth is of the receivers. You take a look at that list, and what's it like just knowing that you have 4 guys that at least of receivers that you don't have just a couple that can really bring it in? What's that been like as you guys have really developed the pass game?
It's been refreshing because I think that's been a little bit of our Achilles heels in the past couple seasons, is that we have, had 2 or 3 guys that we really felt like could play the game at a high level. And that when we subbed in, some guys that maybe we had a drop off, and, that's not necessarily the case this year with this receiving core. It's a veteran group of guys that have been playing a long time for us. And so they've logged a lot of reps over the years. And so, it's just a group right now that's highly disciplined, highly motivated, and goes out and competes every Saturday.
That was one thing when I was preparing my notes of talking about developing the pass game, but then I was looking over the stats and watching some film, and I'm like, these are great numbers. It's pretty even. And like you said, you have those familiar faces of Marcus Cook, Darius Morrison, and Darian Gaines back, but then you have a lot of others. So what is your approach of being able to rush or pass on specific teams? Is there, or I guess, how do you approach the offense? Is it based upon the teams, or are you just looking to do the same thing and make others play your game?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit of all of those things. I think ultimately at the end of the day, I do think that balance in football is a little bit of a myth. It's really kind of up to the defense on whether you're going to throw more or run more. And you've got to be intelligent about putting your team in the best spot. If you're going to just be hard-headed about running the ball and you're facing 9 and 10-man boxes, that's a tough day at the office for you. It feels like beating your head against that brick wall that's in your background back there. So, I think you got to play intelligent football. And I think that's even as you're starting to look around college football, everybody being at a breakneck tempo is starting to disappear, and people are coming back to the huddle, and people are coming back to realizing that time of possession and keeping your defense off the field can help you win games, and playing intelligent football, but using tempos to your advantage. I think those are all things that we try to be smart about here at Central in the way we play the game.
And speaking of defense, I think I heard you say in an earlier conversation that the best spot for the defense is on the bench, which you have certainly seen with how much your offense is on the field. But Tanner Volk, he had such a great year last year that I can't even remember all of it. And then I looked at his laundry list that he's the first ever Wildcat to win the Cliff Harris Award, Harlan Hill finalist, CCA Ron Lentz National Defensive Player of the Year, Don Hansen National Defensive Player of the Year, D2 Football National Defensive Player of the Year, First Team All-American, AFCA, AP D2, CCA, D2Football.com. I can go on and on and on. That is an amazing player to have in the locker room. And coming off a year like last year, how has he let all of that notoriety carry into this year?
He hasn't. I think that's the simple answer. He's left it, where it needed to be left, which is last year, because last year's in the history books. Nobody's ever going to change that for him. He's always going to have that as part of his resume of his life. But I think when you look at Tanner, there's a couple things that you failed to mention. He was the first junior to ever win the Cliff Harris Award. But more importantly, it goes back to that being a great person. He also donated stem cells this summer to save the life of a person with cancer in the National Marrow Donors Program, something that we take part in here at Central through our football program, NMDP, get in the game. And so, he comes from a family. It's an unbelievable family. His parents did a great job raising him. It's nothing we did here. He grew up around football. His dad's a football coach. He was taught at an early age how to handle notoriety. He was taught at an early age how to be humble. He was taught at an early age how to be respectful. And the more notoriety you get, the harder those things are to be. It's hard to be humble when people are telling you not to be humble. It's hard to be humble when people are patting you on the back all the time. And he's got a unique ability to not worry about that stuff. And he's got a unique ability to realize and understand that the only thing that's going to help him in his future is what he does today and what he does tomorrow, and not what he did in the past. That stuff can leave as fast as it got there for him if he's not a good football player this year. And he understands that. And that had nothing to do with us. That had to do with Kristen and Bill Volk and how they raised that young man. And you can't say enough about that family.
And the things that got him all of those awards was that he led the entire NCAA and tied a Central Washington single season record with 13 interceptions, and led all of NCAA Division II with 124 tackles. And he already has an interception, pick 6 on the year this year. And he wears the number 44 jersey, which to most doesn't mean anything. But to Central, what does that mean?
It means that he's the heart and soul and the captain and the leader of our team. We hand that number out to, typically the best defensive player in our program. And the great thing about that tradition is it doesn't get handed down by me. It gets handed down by the previous number 44, the guy that, sees that this guy can handle us putting the program in his hands and be the leader for the future of the program. And so Dante Hamilton handed that down to Tanner Volk, and it was just a really cool thing to see him take that number and build his own version of it, and he continues to do that every single day, but it's a special number in our program.
Well, it is a game week. We're going to go over what's going on in Ellensburg this weekend, but first we're going to take one more break and hear from our sponsors that make this show possible. Again, we're catching up with head coach Chris Fisk of Central Washington football. You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, your Tri-Cities leader in sports.
Inconveniences can happen at, inconvenient times. JRT Mechanical has plumbers and HVAC technicians available 24/7 if an emergency does arise. Or if you feel like your house isn't cooling like it used to, or if you're tired of a hose leaking from last winter's freeze, JRT is an honest, reliable company that's been in the Pacific Northwest for more than 3 decades. Give JRT Mechanical a call at 509-314-4314 or visit jrtmechanical.com.
If you've got a winery, brewery, or dairy, why buy industrial parts and supplies from across the country? Central Industrial Sales is your local source for supplies and equipment for the dairy, food processing, winery, and brewing industries. We specialize in custom fabrication, industrial cleaning equipment, sanitary fittings, valves, pumps, chemicals, and many other supplies. Everything's available through our website, by phone, or by dropping by our office. Call 509-375-4032 or find us at centralindustrialsales.com.
Barbie has come to Krispy Kreme to celebrate her 65th birthday. Come in and join the fun with their Barbie collection. 4 new donuts to help celebrate her special day. While in store, ask a team member how to download the app for more exciting upcoming donuts. And it's fundraising season. Get your fundraiser scheduled today. As always, get 2 dozen glazed donuts for $24.99 daily. That's your local Krispy Kreme. Come in with a sweet tooth, leave with a smile. 2805 Dupertail Street in Richland.
You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, the Tri-Cities leader in sports.
We're back on the Sports Council catching up with Chris Fisk, head coach for Central Washington football. It's game week. I think it's been 11 months, 1 week since you guys have played at the Steve Hertling Field at Tomlinson Stadium. You guys excited to play at home, sleep in your own bed?
We are. It's I think the most thing I'm excited for is to get a haircut. I'm going to go down to CW Barbershop here in Ellensburg tomorrow or Friday and get my hair trimmed, which hasn't happened since fall camp started, so about 8 weeks ago. But there's nothing like playing at home, and we have such a great atmosphere at Tomlinson Stadium. We have one of the great college bands for the Division II level, our marching band, and we fill that thing up. It doesn't seat a lot, but we fill it up, and we got people with standing room only. So we're excited. School's back in session. It started today, and we're excited for a big crowd this weekend.
So first I have to ask, is that a little, not superstitious, but a little stitious with the haircut, or what is, how do you approach haircuts? Do you only get them for home games? What does that look like?
Well, typically we can only get them for home games because that's all the time that we have. But no, I don't have a lot of when I was young, I probably had a few more superstitions that I've given up since then, and kind of realize that it's more about how we coach them and what we do week to week than it is what type of pants or if I'm wearing the same underwear, all that type of stuff. I don't really buy into that stuff. So I'll be happy to get a haircut. I promise you. Okay.
So it's just because you haven't had time to get a haircut, not that you have.
Yeah. Okay. And I know the older I'm getting, it's more about getting my eyebrows trimmed anyway. I need those suckers knocked down a little bit.
You have to be able to see the field.
Yes.
And you guys do have some things that you do over and over. Is the turnover belt back this year? What are a few of the things that you guys have that really, I think, raise morale, that the fans like it and the players like it?
Yeah, no, I think the turnover belt's back this year. We had a funny story last week. We had the turnover belt on our sideline, and one of the ball boys from West Texas grabbed it and threw it up into the student section. And we had to stop our players from going into the student section to go retrieve it. And we convinced the West Texas kids to give it back to us. But it did cost their team a touchdown at the end of the game there because of it. So we were a little disappointed to see that. But we got the turnover belt back, and it's one of the great traditions that we've been going here now. And it's something we're excited that hopefully we get to celebrate the turnover belt this weekend.
And you're looking to celebrate the turnover belt with Western New Mexico in town. What can you expect from them?
I think a hungry team. They've already equaled their win total from a year ago. So that's a team that's believing. They're believing the message that staff has sent in their second year. And so I think we'll see a hungry team that comes up here to Ellensburg to get a win. I know, when you're from New Mexico and the Lone Star State, you get a lot of excitement to come up to Seattle and spend a little bit of time and see the Pacific Northwest. And we'll have to be ready to go, and we'll have to come out with a fast start like we did a week ago to keep this team in check.
And we're running out of time. So final question, being a Division II football program, I mentioned it earlier, you guys are an overlooked team in the state of Washington that have been doing so many good things, but a lot of your talent is local. So how does that play into your program that a lot of people might overlook some of the talent that you've brought in that are doing just amazing things at Central Washington?
Yeah, I think we take a lot of pride in being the scholarship team in the state that has the highest number of Washington kids on its roster, and we're always going to take a lot of pride in that. I'm a throwback a little bit. I try to be new school for the kids, but I'm a throwback coach. I believe in school pride. One of my goals here at some point during my time at Central Washington is bring back the Letterman's jacket and bring back school pride and get kids going to games of other sports and going out and supporting the teams. And so we take a lot of pride and hopefully through the effort that we have, we don't really worry about what level of football we're at. One of the great coaches to come out of the state of Washington, his name was Frosty Westerling over at PLU. He wrote a book called Make the Big Time Where You're At. And so that's what we do here at Central. We make the big time where we're at. We don't have to be at UW or Washington State to be the best football program in the state, the best run football program, to have the highest attention to detail as football players. We can play the best football in the state of Washington by being big time at the level that we're at. And we try to do that every single day here at Central Washington.
Well, ranked 9th. I appreciate your time. Again, Central Washington hosting Western New Mexico in the home opener at Tomlinson Stadium, or I should say the Steve Hertling Field at Tomlinson Stadium. Kickoff at 6 o'clock. Head Coach Chris Fisk, thank you so much for your time and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, that wraps up this week's show of the Sports Council. You can listen to this show not just over the airwaves at 11:30 on Thursdays, but also on demand at 1340ESPNradio.com via podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search for the Sports Council, and it's also available via YouTube. So lots of ways to listen to the Sports Council and support our local sports community. Until next time, I'm Jamie Council. Now we go back to your originally scheduled Seattle sports programming.